On today's episode of the Going Deeper podcast, we are talking about serving where you are. What's up, Fathom Church? Welcome to the Going Deeper podcast. This is your host, Kyle Knight. These are episodes that we just like to dig a little bit deeper and hopefully help you go deeper in your relationship with God. I'm here in the podcast studio with Karina Boss, our missions minister. Hello, Karina.
Hello.
And lead pastor, Chris Martin. Hello, Chris.
Hey,
so we're talking. We're going to talk a little bit about serving today, and really serving where you are. And one of the things that I just kind of want to lead with this podcast with is something that I've been kind of thinking about as we've been talking. Like, we talk about serving a lot, and we talk about your calling a lot. We've had we just did a podcast on God's will and everything like that, and figuring these things out for your own life. But we talk about serving a lot. We talk about serving a lot in the church, and serving where you are. And I want to focus on that where you are piece, where that God has called you to be. Because one of the things that I think that some Christians maybe believe, maybe this is like a misconception among Christians, is that unless you're a pastor or a missionary, you're not going to have as much of an impact in serving, loving your neighbors, loving the people at your job, whatever it is. So those who aren't working in a church, I think some kind of have this misconception that, like, oh, well, then I don't have that big of an impact around the world or my like where I'm at for the gospel, whether that's like spreading the gospel, sharing the good news, or just loving and serving people around us. And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, and just kind of get your guys' thoughts on what that looks like as a Christian, and especially if you're not working in a church, and what that looks like to actually serve and use your gifts where you're at. So, Chris, I'm going to throw this to you and just get your kind of initial thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could talk, and we've done this. We've talked about like serving your church and using spiritual gifts, but let's table some of that. And let's think of other domains where Christians are then called to serve, called to exercise our gifts, even our spiritual gifts, for the betterment of not only the edification of the church, but for the betterment of, for the purpose of evangelism, for the purpose of hospitality, for the purpose of, even for the welfare of the city. So I thought of, as you were talking, Kyle, I thought of three domains outside of the church. I thought of work, I thought of home, then I thought of our city. Like those three domains. Like, most of us have some sort of vocation, whether that's paid or unpaid. We have some sort of, putting our hand to the plow work that we do. And so how you work matters, and that we could talk about that domain a little bit. Home is another domain. So this would be, of course, family and things like that. But then I would also expand home to say, how are we open-handed and hospitable with our home, with our lives that are not public, as it were. So I think that, hospitality has been hijacked into an industry or into the way that you decorate with pumpkins this time of year. But the reality is, hospitality, like biblical hospitality, is how you welcome outsiders into your life. So I think home maybe is a second domain that we might consider. And then city, I know we just talked in our last podcast about our Thailand mission trip, but there's also, like, we're in a large metropolitan city in Colorado. I mean, the Denver metro area is huge. It's vastly important. And in some ways, as Christians, we're a very small minority, and we can kind of function, the Bible would say we function kind of like exiles. It's almost like we are exiles in Babylon, but we are exiles in Denver. And so some of the words, the exilic words from the prophets, are directly applicable then to God's people as they live and witness and serve their city. So I like those three maybe buckets that we could play in a little bit and talk about as something of a framework. If you guys have other things you want to talk about too, let's throw those in there. But that might give us a little bit of a framework to think through serving.
Yeah, for sure. Let's start with that. Let's start with work. Karina, I know you partially work here. But what could that look like for those Christians in their place of work when it comes to serving and loving others well?
Yeah, that's a great question. I work in a church and I work on a Christian campus. So, but I think there are very intentional ways. I've heard, I have some family members that work in very secular industries, and there's almost like rules against sharing your faith. And so I think it's really important, especially in like work on work, is to build relationship first and not, please hear me. I'm not saying fake to be someone's friend so you can slide the gospel in there. Like, that is not what I'm saying. Genuinely try to make friends at work, because I think that opens doors to gospel conversations outside of the work area. I think that is just one of those tricky things in the world we live in, that you don't want to get fired, but we also have a call that we are to be a light in the dark. And some of the workplaces are very dark places.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a number of ways. Obviously, evangelism and relationships and things like that. I agree with Karina. I mean, I think how you work matters.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you're doing. Like, what kind of worker are you? How is that witness looked at? There's all these people who are like, yeah, I'm just working for the weekend. If you're a Christian and you're working for the weekend, I think you're doing it wrong. I get it. You don't have to love and be thrilled and passionate about everything you do vocationally. Like, sometimes you just work a job so that you can support your family. I get that. And yet the scriptures tell us that you do all things as unto the Lord.
Yeah.
So who are you really working for? I mean, I know your boss is kind of a jerk or what. Like, okay, well, you guys, not your boss.
I was just
your boss is legit. But he's not really your boss. Like, I'm not really your boss. Like, I am, but I'm not. Like, you work for the Lord.
Yeah. Whether
Whether you're in ministry, whether you're a first responder, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a stay-at-home mom or a dad. I mean, any vocation you're doing, if you're a coach, I mean, you're doing all that stuff for a paycheck or for whatever, but you're also doing it for Jesus. And so how you work matters. Man, just your countenance matters. Like, are you just a big complainer? Are you just griping at the water cooler with your coworkers? Are you playing into that hand? You might not be doing anything sketchy or nefarious at your job, but are you building it up? Or are you just kind of, you're just part of the problem, the squeaky wheel there? I mean, I think people should be like, man, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if I believe what that guy believes, but wherever it is, I want him on my team.
Yeah.
Like, if you're an engineer, they should want you on your project. If you're a school teacher, they should want you teaching their kids. Like, your work should be so exemplary because of your relationship with Christ that people look on and go, oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's excellent.
Yes.
Not because you're just good at crushing it, but because you love Jesus and he loves people. So I don't know, man. I think work is a huge bucket that we could talk about.
And a lot of that resonates with me. My first job out of college before I got into ministry was working construction. I was drilling holes, and I was right out of college, so I was the youngest guy there. There were a bunch of dudes who were a lot older than me and lived very different lives than me, and that was very obvious with the conversations that were had around us working construction. But yeah, Chris, you're right. It's that what I tried to do is I tried to at least show in my work, and think about who I was actually doing this for, and trying and just trying my best to work for the Lord every day and not complain and not, partake in the conversations that were going on, all that kind of stuff. Now, the complaining piece was really hard in my construction job, because there were days where it was very hard to not complain about certain things. But that was the piece that really stuck with me in that kind of job and in that setting. every day I would go to work and just pray that like, God, help me to do whatever I do for you and do the best I can do for you, and help me to not complain, not argue about this, not grumble about this, not have this attitude that I'm better than this or anything like that. So I just tried to show it in my work that I was different, and that was a way that I could hopefully. And they knew I was a Christian. My uncle worked at that. He pretty much got me a job there, and so they kind of knew who I was. And being the youngest one there, I just kind of went with the flow of everything. But that's the way that I thought, you know what, I can show them who I am by how I work, by how I don't talk like them, and how I don't complain and everything like they do. And so I think that's a big piece of work and loving others and serving others in your work, for sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about home. What does that look like home for, like, in our homes as Christians to love and serve those, if whether our work is at home too, but whether you have families, if you're a parent and you have kids, or your kids are out of the house, those sorts of things, like how Pastor Chris was kind of talking about, what does it look like to be hospitable and welcoming people into your home? What are some ways we can do that? And maybe even some practical things for us to do, for those of us that don't really think about this as kind of our mission field a lot of the times, especially when it comes to like even your neighbors and those like around you. Karina, what do you think?
I think you have to be very intentional to live out your faith. I've heard this said often that your first missions field is your children, and they are the ones that are watching you the most.
Yeah.
And so for me, that was always, as a parent, I'm not perfect, which my son was so kind to point that out recently. But it's just being, honest and open with your kids. Kevin and I made a practice of apologizing to our children, but also just living out our faith. Like when God does really cool, amazing things, we share that with our family. When we're struggling and we sit down and pray together, we pray together and stuff like that. So I think there's just ways to live out your faith in front of your family, especially with children, that bears a testimony that you can't speak.
Yeah. Yeah. We think that serving our kids is like getting them into the best programs and the best schools and the best this and that. And I want to just mirror that back to you, Karina, that like the best way you served your kids was by showing them Jesus. Like, yeah, I mean, I hope that they go to Harvard or whatever, but it's like, come on now. Like you modeling Christ is serving them well. So I think that's a great way to consider, like using your gifts and abilities to serve the Lord through your home. I do think this expands though beyond just immediate family too, right? Like the way that we neighbor, the way that we open our homes, maybe literally, but also kind of figuratively. So I was thinking about this as we were talking about missions the last couple of weeks in podcasts. So I did a short-term mission trip to Nicaragua right at the end of high school before college, and American home culture is different than almost anywhere else in the world that I've been. So like when I was in Nicaragua, we go to this church and I just meet a guy he's probably 20, 21, who is a member of this little church that we were visiting in the slums of Managua. And he says, "Chris, come." And he grabs my hand and goes web to web handhold with me, which is one thing that I was not prepared for, is walking down and literally we start walking down the street. We're just holding hands web to web, and it was uncomfortable, but he wanted to show me his home. And so we are walking through these dirt streets of Nicaragua, and then he pulls me into his little, it was barely a shack, but he wanted to show me his home. He wanted to give me some rice and beans. He wanted, like, he was very, it was hospitality. And I wonder, here's a good litmus test. How many of your neighbors have seen the inside of your home? like your neighbors, not somebody you just met web to web and walked them in, but like the people who have lived next to you for 5, 10, 20 years. Yeah. How many of them have seen the inside of your home? See, we don't treat our homes like something to be shared. We treat our homes like sanctuaries, right?
Totally.
Take your shoes off, don't mess anything up. This is a place of comfort and refuge, not a place of hospitality. And I just wonder if there's something for us in terms of, like, I'm not saying it's not a bad thing for you to shut it down, close your blinds, and, cave up every once in a while in your home. I think it should be a place of rest. But if you never open your doors to your neighbors, and I'll even push on this, that don't mean your home group, your small group from church, because welcoming Christians into your home is one thing. Welcoming your neighbor, an outsider into your home is a different thing. My neighbor kids come over, like when your kids come over, Kyle, to my house, it's like, yeah, I know they're not going to screw anything up. The neighbor kids come over, it's like, oh no, like I better hide some stuff. You know what I'm saying? But that's hospitality, is being welcoming to strangers. So I don't know, man. I think there's some service that we should really consider when it comes to neighboring. Yeah. That's ministry. It's not just like, hey, I got to go serve at my church or like go into vocational ministry. It's like, nah, man, you can have a dinner party, like do a backyard cookout with your 5 houses around you and see what the Lord does there.
Yeah, I agree with that. And this is something that I've been working on because I'm pretty introverted. And so this is something that Jackie has challenged me on and everything. And not even just like we invite our neighbors over and we have dinner. We go to their house and have dinner. But also even just like having kids is kind of this is an easy thing for me because the kids are like, my kids are kind of like my easy way to talk to neighbors. And so we're always out front playing. And that used to, like, me being an introvert, there's some times where I'm like, I don't want to be out. Like I want to mow my lawn and then like get inside. Don't talk to me. But I think the Lord is really challenging me on like being out. Like whenever I see neighbors, actually chatting with them and actually having good conversation with them instead of just like waving and saying like, oh, see you later. And so we've had a couple new people just move in into our block now. And we haven't met one of them yet because that was just this past weekend. But new neighbors next door who have it's like a single mom who has younger girls, but they're older than our kids. And we've been trying to get them over. They're a little like reluctant, but just loving them even where they are. And when their girls are out playing, like our kids are out and they're playing with them too. And I'm having chats with their mom and everything like that. And so I think it's important to realize that and remember that that no matter like what your home situation is, whether it's like your physical home or if you have a family or whatever that is that God has put you in that situation and he's blessed you with whatever it is, whether it's a home that can fit a bunch of people or a smaller home that can't, or kids who want to play with other kids or no kids. But I think it's important to just be faithful and obedient to what God has given you and see where he leads you in that. Because again, and this is coming from someone who I used to try and just not talk as much as I could. And so he's really kind of doing a work on me. And let's hit this last one, Chris, that you were talking about, your city. What does this look like in Littleton and our surrounding area, our church, that sort of stuff? Chris, I'm going to throw that over to you.
Yeah. So this is what I was talking about from Jeremiah. So Jeremiah is a exilic prophet, writing to Israel as they have been sent into captivity, into the exile. In Jeremiah 29, starting in verse 4 says, "Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, to all the exiles whom I've sent into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon." So first of all, God sent them. Okay. So God has put us here as the minority, as the Christian minority here. Verse 5, here's his instruction: build houses and live in them, plant gardens and eat their produce. Take wives and have sons and daughters. Take wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage, that they may bear sons and daughters. Multiply there and do not decrease. So that's like family stuff. Okay. So like your family being a part of the city is the instruction for while you're in exile. Okay. But here's verse 7. This is the classic text. But seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf, for in its welfare you will find your welfare. So that's an interesting passage to like use as a commentary over our cultural moment where we live, where he says, hey, seek the welfare of your city. Okay. So that means local missions. That means local politics. That means local schools, school boards. That means local businesses supporting the commerce. That means, community service projects. I mean, fill in the blank, like before the city, before your community. But then more than that, he says, and pray for its welfare. Like pray for it. Like when was the last time you prayed for Littleton? I mean, I can't think of a time when I have recently, right? But he's like, why wouldn't you pray for its welfare? Because if it goes well for it, it will go well for you, right? And so he's like, pray for it. And Christians think that like, well, yeah, prayer, sure. Like, no. He's saying prayer is actually, it's what we talked about with the Thailand thing. Yeah, prayer is actually the work. Like praying for our city, praying that the Lord would actually do something. Like I was just meeting with a guy a couple weeks ago, and he was talking to me about a vision that he had for the Front Range of Colorado. And here's what he said. He said the Denver metro area, the Front Range area, has 1.3 million unreached people. 1.3 million unreached people. Now, they have access to the gospel, but they are not Christians. And so he's like, my vision is that 1.3 million Christians, people become Christians in the Front Range. And I'm like, hey, I don't know how to even begin to do that. But the Bible just said, pray for it. Right? So like, that's what I would say. Yeah, you should find some way to get involved in your community. You should find some way to promote like missional things within your city. But then golly, like I know again, back to the Thailand podcast. What if we started prayer walking our city? Like did you know there are apps that will track your steps and your prayer walking? Like you can track where you prayer walk. And actually there's this prayer walking app where you could get 50 people all on the same app, and it will show you and map the areas that have been prayer walked. How wild would it be if the 250, 300 people at Fathom all committed to start prayer walking, and we just tracked it on the app and mapped out where Fathom people are praying for?
That is awesome.
Wouldn't that be rad?
I just typed that in because I'm like,
it's a real thing.
So cool.
It's a real thing. I don't know. Yeah, sure. Get your hands dirty. Get on the school board. If you do local politics, vote, do all that stuff. But if you walk your dog, man, you pray blessings over each house you pass. Pray for your neighbors. Pray for your friends. Like, I don't know. There's a billion ways to do this, but this is a way that we can serve and exercise our gifts as Christians. What do you think, Karina? Add to that pot.
Yeah, I think you bring up an interesting point about we kind of like to closet ourselves in our house. And God has put each one of us in this entire church in a specific neighborhood for a reason. There are people we can be reaching. Mostly we just prevent ourselves. And it's one thing to invite them over, but I think that we need to take important steps to share the gospel. I think that we can be like, oh, I'm doing my part now. I invited them over for dinner. But when they walk out the door, if they don't even know that you're believers or might not even suspect that you're believers, I think we're missing the mark. Yeah. I think Tim Keller points out 4 ways to like slowly, gradually kind of interact with neighbors and families. And the first is just one-on-one subtle things like praying before dinner or mentioning a Bible verse that you remember. Just very low-key, informal ways of doing it. The second way is a little bit more formal. And it's talking about a Christian book that you're reading, like intentionally be reading a Christian book and you can mention. So it's just things like that, more intentional conversations that you can have about your faith. And then the third thing you can do is once you've kind of planted enough seeds is that you can invite them to church with you, or you can invite them to a Bible study, or you can have a very intentional bring them to a Christian gathering sort of thing. And the last one is once you've kind of done those things, you can share your testimony, like ask them, hey, I want to take you out to coffee and just really share with you how I come to Christ. Now, obviously, you don't have to do all 4 of these in that exact order, but it's just kind of a guideline to make sure that you aren't continually inviting your neighbors over for dinner and them walking out the door and they are not any more aware of Christ than when they walked in.
Yeah, I think it's important, especially for the people of Fathom Church, to like remember that, man, when you come to church here on a Sunday, you're here for an hour and a half, whatever it is. For the rest of your entire week, you're at your home, you're at your job, you're in the city, around your neighborhood, like all that kind of stuff. Your mission field is so much bigger than here at Fathom Church. And so yeah, I think it's important to really just look at where you're at, and really pray that God will use you where you're at, and know that no matter what you're doing, I mean, if you're not working in a church, fine. But like if you have the gospel and if you know the gospel, God has strategically put you where you're supposed to be, in whatever neighborhood that is, whatever city that is, whatever job that is, whatever family that is. He has you there for a reason. And so I think that's really kind of like the biggest point we could make here today. Do you guys have any other thoughts on this? Last little thoughts? Nope. Well, good. I mean, church, we hope that you think about this. Again, pray about this. I feel like a broken record as we say this so many times, but let's get into really praying for our spheres of influence, like we like to say in many podcasts, like who we are close to, who do we see, who are those that live around us, who are those that we spend the most time with, and pray that God uses us for us to be faithfully obedient to whatever God has called us to do and wherever he calls us to do those things. So do that, church. We'll be praying for you as you are out in your spheres of influence. And so, yeah, thank you, church. Thank you guys for talking. Thanks for listening, church. We'll catch you next time.